Hi, it's me. You can call me BP. That little loaf back there is my emotional support Oliver, and welcome back to our channel.
BP's back!
And today we are going to talk about Season 8, Episode 9 of 911 entitled Sob Stories. The episode is basically only a Maddie storyline and an Eddie and Buck storyline, so I'm going to talk about Maddie's storyline and kind of recap it for you. I'm going to talk about Eddie and Buck's storyline and recap it for you, and then we're going to go into thoughts and theories and spirals and clowning. Then I'm going to give you some post-mortem interview thoughts. Look how cute the cat is. I'll insert a picture of what he actually looks like because you can't really see him. Maddie's storyline opens with her at work taking a call from like a very clearly like disguised voice of a man named John, who Maddie thinks is about to hurt himself, but turns out he's not alone because he's kidnapped a girl and she's like in the room with him. And, you know, Maddie's super stressed out about it. And Maddie tries to reason with him in a very sweet way. And she basically is just kind of like, I know what it's like to feel like a danger and like only want to keep a kid safe, referring to Gian and her daughter and that kind of situation. John, the guy on the phone, is like, okay, well, like, promise me you're not going to send the police after me. And Maddie's like, I promise. She does anyway. The cops show up and John gets really angry. And the address that they sent the cops to, there's nothing there. And then John gets upset that Maddie broke the promise and hangs up on her. And Maddie's like so stressed out. So Maddie and Athena go to this missing persons detective to basically be like, hey, we don't think this call was a hoax. We think it's real. And we think that there's actually like a girl who's in danger. And this missing persons detective's name is Amber. And then Maddie shows up with her little folder and is like, I've been on Dispatcher Reddit and this guy's done this before. And then the missing persons detective is like, I think it's this guy named Richard. And Maddie and Athena are both like, great, let's talk to him. And then Amber is like, well, I can't because I've talked to him so much that if I talk to him without super hard evidence, it's considered harassment. And then Athena says the most Athena line I've ever heard her say. And she says, I'm not above a little harassment. Yeah, we know, queen. We know. That's why the middle spot, the free space in all of the bingo cards is always Athena breaks the law. We know, Athena. We know you're not above harassment. So then Athena goes to Richard's last known address. Richard is not there, but his girlfriend Isabel is there. And Athena talks with Isabel and kind of gets some intel from her. And they find out where Richard's location is. Athena shows up with the SWAT team and with the missing persons detective and raids his house. And he's gone, he's vanished, and it looked like he went in a hurry because he like didn't finish his food. He left his medication behind. Like it was clear he just like up and left. And then we get the original line from the trailer. This fuck ass line.
And it looks like he took Maddie with him.
Yeah, we get the original line where she actually says it looks like he took Jano with him. You know what I don't understand about that? Why didn't they get Angela Bassett in the studio and just have her record the line, it looks like he took Maddie with her, to make it not sound as ridiculous? I digress. So then we see Maddie at work again and she answers a call and it's Richard. And he's tried to call 911 like 4 different times so he can finally get Maddie. And he's talking with Maddie and he's like, I know that you've reached out to Isabel. Like, how could you do that? Oh, then he starts talking about like weird things of like, oh, did you know it takes like 10 minutes to like bleed out from your jugular? You wouldn't want your daughter to go through that, Gian. And then Maddie's like, switch on, do not talk about my child. First of all, how do you know my child's name? This is scary. Richard is basically saying like, I need to make this stop. Like, you think I'm a monster. And Maddie's like, I don't think that you are a monster. I think a part of you is, but I think a part of you is good because that's why you called, but you need to slay the monster to make it stop. And to slay the monster, you know how to make it stop. It's in your hand. And Richard's like, you're right. And shoots himself on the phone. I don't mean to laugh, but also like the ethical ramifications of what she just did, wild. Absolutely wild. Athena shows up to the house that Richard was calling from. They do find him dead on the floor with the gun and the phone. And then they search for Jaina. They find Jaina. She's alive. She's unharmed. They're taking her out of the house. And listen, it's already gone viral on TikTok. But when I tell you I was like capital G gagged when this song started playing as they were pulling her out of the house. No, absolutely not. Also, the fact that they got Billie Eilish money, insane. Absolutely insane. Maddie experiences like a lot of guilt because she told Richard to like do those things, and then right after she said that, Athena shows up, and she and Athena go to the missing persons detective's office, and Maddie's still struggling with all this guilt, whatever, and Amber, who's the detective, and Athena are there, and they're talking to her. And Amber and Athena are basically just like, okay, well, we're going to show you this. We're not going to release it to the public. But once we searched Richard's house, we found this in the like tank of his toilet. And it was like all of these different trophies from all of these different girls that he's kidnapped and, you know, done bad things to. And so, yeah, Maddie, while you might feel guilt, like, don't feel that guilty, you know? Like, you can feel like a little guilt because, like, obviously, but like not. He wasn't a great guy. Then Athena's like, Maddie, go home, like hug your kid, have a big thing of scotch, which, put a pin in that, actually not a pin in it, I'm gonna take it out right now. No one but Buck and Chimney knows that Maddie's pregnant, right? So then Maddie goes home, has a bedtime story with Gian, which is really cute because they have the same hair. They're so cute. She puts G to bed, she's going and she's doing dishes, and then she hears someone come in. She thinks it's Chimney. Maddie gets conked on the head. She's like laying there, somewhat unconscious, and hears the like distorted voice from the 911 calls. As she's doing that, the figure above her is like very, very hazy, and then it becomes clear. Guess who conked Maddie on the head? Amber, the missing persons detective. And she was like, you made me do this, and yada, yada, yada. I'll insert like a clip or some screenshots so you can see exactly what she says. But then she's like, you're gonna be so mad at me. And then the episode ends there. What the fuck? Literally, what the fuck? So then the other like storyline in the episode is whatever the fuck Buck and Eddie are doing. So they start the episode with Buck and Eddie doing a one man's task together. Eddie is spraying the windows and Buck is wiping them. Eddie is talking to him about this house that he has found in El Paso and that he's already put a down payment on. Buck basically says like, oh, well, like, have you told Cap about this? And Eddie is like, no, I haven't, because I still have to get my ducks in a row. And by that, I mean, I need to find someone to sign a sublease for my apartment or my house because I just re-signed my lease and I can't pay for these two places, whatever. And Buck is like, you and I will get your place sublease like the Property Brothers. And Eddie like really sweetly is just like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do without you. And then Buck's face is like, oh my God, you're right. You're leaving me. Oh, fuck. Then we get the sad puppy storyline, which is the first fire that they've fought in quite a long time. We have this really cute beagle who has run away from home and gets picked up by a shelter, and then that shelter explodes. It doesn't explode. Well, it explodes at the end, but it like goes up in flames. Buck rescues this dog and like gets like really attached to the dog. That's the sad puppy backstory. That's like the one call that they go on this episode. Then we see Buck and Eddie staging Eddie's house for these potential people, these potential renters to come in. Also, we saw a lot of really cute details placed around Eddie's house, and those details being screenshots from the episode of 911, not pictures being taken. Whatever. I digress. That doesn't need to anger me, but it does. Anyway, during this whole time, we see like 3 different potential people come in, and every single person who comes, Buck somehow sabotages it in one way, shape, or another. He like tells one family that like the floor is kind of creaky over there and that like it's not a great kitchen. And then he tells the story about like meth lab Jim, neighbor down the street who had a meth lab. And Eddie also, the whole time he's like holding a fucking basketball. And I'm like, what is it with Buck and weird jealousy issues when he has a basketball? Is that like his or you know, like in Space Jam when he has the basketball full of all of the NBA powers? Is that like what Buck's basketball is? It's just like raging jealousy that, you know. Anyway, so then after like the third person that Buck sabotages, Eddie is like, what are you doing? You're sabotaging this. You're done. Leave. And so Buck's like, I'm not doing that, but like, okay, I'll leave. And so Buck goes to leave out the back door. As he's leaving, he realizes he doesn't have his phone. He goes back into the kitchen and he hears Eddie at the front door basically saying, what is this quote here? I took notes because of course I did. Oh, like, I'm going back to Texas because that's where my family is. I have no ties here. And Buck is like, fuck you. So then Buck and his horrific abandonment issues goes to the animal shelter and adopts the beagle, whose name we find out is Bailey. No, the actor dog's name is Bailey. The character dog, Buck, name's Blaze. And when Buck is at the station, Eddie walks in and is like, I didn't think you thought about getting a dog. Then Buck goes, do I have to run everything by you? And Eddie's like, okay, relax. Eddie asks, like, does your apartment even allow dogs? And Buck is like, if that's a problem, I'll just move. Oh, and then there's a comment one point in time where like Buck says like, I'm not an abandoner, dig at Eddie. But then he says like, oh, if it's a problem with my apartment, like, I'll just move because you're not the only one who can do that. And then the entire team is like, awkward. Then the whole rest of the team, and by that I mean Maddie, Jimmy, and Bobby, are like, you're moving. And Eddie is like, yeah, I didn't want to tell you right now, but yeah, I am. I'm going back to Texas. And everyone else is like super understanding and like super excited for him. And then like Buck is just sitting with the dog, like pouting. And he's like, that didn't work. And then Eddie really aggressively goes like, thanks, Buck. Eating the angst up. Later, we see Buck with the dog, and Eddie's like still trying to like have a conversation with him, and he's like, oh, are you teaching him everything you know? And Buck goes, yeah, well, this one knows how to stay. Eddie's like, you got something to say to me? And Buck's like, no. And then Eddie's like, oh, so you only have something to say when Cap's around? And then Buck goes, oh, you only have things to say about me behind my back, and basically tells Eddie about the things that he's heard, like he told the renters. It was just like, first of all, the representation that I felt of the ADHD rejection sensitivity dysphoria on my TV screen ate it up. Absolutely ate it up. Then the dog, who's like sitting in Buck's lap, takes off running, and we find out that the dog's name is actually Bingo, and Bingo's original family has come back to get him because he ran away during the fireworks. And Buck reluctantly gives him back, and Chimney is like, could you let him say goodbye? And they're like, oh yeah, of course. And so Buck gives a goodbye to the dog, which is also like pseudo a goodbye to Eddie, and he says like, don't go running off from your family because you don't know how hard it is for them. And then we end with like the most ridiculous I've ever seen. And Eddie is getting ready for this new showing of the house. Buck shows up. Eddie gets pissed, absolutely pissed, and starts like yelling at Buck. Oh, and then Buck uses some really insane choice words where he was like, I didn't mean to out you to Cap. Out you? And then Eddie's like, you absolutely did. You got mad and you act out like you always do. And it just, the angst. And then he was like, if you need to be pissed off at me to make it easier for you, then be pissed off at me. And Buck's like, I'm not pissed off at you. And he's like, really? It was literally like Grocery Store 2.0. It was like Divorce Arc 2. And then and then this man is like, if you're gonna make me choose between you or my son, it's gonna be my son every single time. And Buck is like, I know. There's another knock on the door, and Eddie is like, okay, well, that's like the renter, you gotta go, whatever. He opens the door, and it's Bobby, Chim, and Hen, and they're like, surprise, we're going out for your goodbye dinner. And Eddie's like, this really isn't a great time. I'm supposed to meet this guy to show the house. And everyone just kind of looks at Buck, and they're like, you haven't told him? And Buck's like, it's me. I'm Freddie. I'm the one who is going to take over your lease. And Eddie is like, what? He's like, what about your loft? And Buck's like, I put in my notice this morning. Like, I'll take care of this for you so you can go back to where you belong and like take care of Christopher. It's so sweet. And then Hen is like, you should just hug it out. She should have said kiss. Hen should have suggested that they just kiss. We have another buddy hug, which we get a accidental sneak of Oliver's tattoo right here. Love to see it. And then Eddie calls Buck Buckley. I want to scream. Okay, so in discussion of like what the fuck actually happened in that episode, first of all, was there a time jump? I would assume so, because if there wasn't a time jump between Wannabes and now, then like this would be in like early December and we'll be getting a Christmas episode soon. And why would we have a Christmas episode in March? I don't know. Actually, I wouldn't even put it past this fucking show. But I always like to operate under the belief that we're operating in real time. But we don't have like a confirmation of the time jump. We just like kind of think it. Also, I want to draw your attention to something, right? What are Buck and Eddie doing at the very first part of the episode while they're having that conversation? They're cleaning something, right? What are they cleaning? They are cleaning their locker room. You want to know what that locker room essentially is? A glass closet. Buck and Eddie are cleaning a glass closet together. I'm being completely normal about that. No, I'm not. Okay, so besides cleaning a glass closet together, crazy. Absolute crazy. If you were those potential renters and you walked in to a house with like two men there, one dressed in a pink cardigan, what would you think the nature of their relationship would be? I'm just saying. I'm just saying. It's crazy. It's literally crazy. So going back, I had mentioned that like the staging house with like all of the details. This picture, which is the picture of Buck and Eddie on the skateboard, and then we have some ones on the mantle, which I can't remember them from memory, but I'll put them on the screen with text and what they are. And there's also one by the front door that is also really cute. And then just the absolute fucking angst that we get from Buck and Eddie and just like their refusal to like talk about things is crazy. And like the tantrum that Buck throws, which are not my words, by the way, they're Tim Benier's words. And then the fight at the end is insane to me, because just like the fact that Eddie had to get so angry, and the whole thing of like Eddie getting angry and being like, if you need to be pissed off at me to make it easier for you, and then Buck being like, I'm actually not the one that is angry, you are. No, you, Uno reverse. Insane. Remember the last time that there was a significant person in Buck's life who left and then Buck was just like in their house forever? And remember how that ended? So like with Buck taking over Eddie's lease, right. So then it also kind of like is worth mentioning the size of the U-Haul, because it's so small, because Eddie left furniture for Buck, question mark. We'll see about that. Okay, so then when we're like looking forward and we're like thinking more about what the fuck is going on in the next episode, which is voices. The voices! Right. Is Eddie going to leave in the middle of the Maddie kidnapping arc, or is he going to leave like after that? Is Eddie going to leave at the beginning of the episode and then let Buck double spiral because Eddie's left, Buck has to move, Buck's sister just got kidnapped? Who knows? Who knows? But also, is Eddie's U-Haul so small because he left a lot of things for Buck? And then when it comes with the double furniture, obviously Eddie's going to take his own bed and Buck's going to move his own bed. But do you think it's going to be weird for Buck to like be asleep in Eddie's room without him? Or do you think like Buck's just going to sleep on the couch because he finds it weird to like sleep in Eddie's room, right? If they show a shot of that man on Eddie's fucking blue couch, I'm going to lose my mind. Literally lose my mind. Whatever I have left of it. Also, what happens if Eddie comes back from Texas? I know I'm saying if, even though I know the answer is when. I know the correct statement is when Eddie comes back from Texas. But is Buck going to be like Eddie's landlord? Are they going to live together? If when Eddie comes back, is he gonna kick Buck out? Are they gonna be roommates? Oh my god, they were roommates. Buck, Eddie, and Christopher roommate era. And also what's crazy to me is that Eddie let Christopher be in El Paso for so long that he felt like he had to move there instead of like bringing Christopher back to LA, right? That's a commentary on Helena and Ramon Diaz's parenting choices, not Eddie Diaz and Christopher Diaz. Anyway, I already missed The Loft. I think The Loft is incredible, and I think she's beautiful. You were bigger than the whole sky. What the fuck? And then we're gonna talk about the Maddie articles. We're gonna talk about Maddie, the articles. We're gonna talk about the articles next, actually. Okay, I shifted the camera angle a little bit. There were quite a few articles that came out after the episode had aired on Thursday, so I'm just gonna kind of go through them and kind of the little bits of information that I've learned from them. All of the links to all of them will be in the description box. They will be in chronological order. Ryan was saying that a lot, like the bulk of the storyline going forward with Eddie is going to be like him getting in the swing of like being in Texas and like being a father to Chris again, while also like trying to deal with whatever the fuck Helena and Ramon are doing. My words, not his. We also learn that Chris knows that Eddie is coming and that we will see Chris and Eddie in Texas together on our screen, which like I know a lot of people, myself included, were like worried about that we would just like hear about it in the background. But no, we will actually see Christopher Diaz back on our screen again. Gavin, I miss you. I miss you, Gavin. We have an interview with Tim, our showrunner, and he's I don't know what's going on in that man's head. When they were talking about Amber the detective, Tim said she's more than one person, as we'll discover, which is a wild thought. Also, Jennifer Love Hewitt said that she lost her voice while filming this arc and that it's, quote, the craziest thing she's ever done on 911, and it pushed her a bit more even more than the story with Doug. Even more than the storyline with Doug. What the fuck? Tim goes on a little bit and he's basically saying that just like Buck puts his feelings aside to help Eddie, but then once he gets his feelings hurt, he, quote, takes that as an excuse to lay down on the floor and have a tantrum. Which, you said it, not me. We also learned that Ryan actually changed that scene because Ryan thought it would be more appropriate for Eddie to yell at Buck. Incredible. Then they asked him if, like, the whole, like, thing about Buck living in Eddie's was, like, somewhat of, like, a callback or a reference to Abby, and Tim said that he made it a reference, but it like fell out because the like network really wasn't understanding it. But the difference that Tim says is that Buck wasn't living at Abby's, he was waiting for her to come back because he was expecting Abby to come back, but with Eddie he's understood that Eddie's not coming back. Within the whole thing of like Eddie not coming back, the door is always open to return to LA, and we're going to get a great storyline in Texas in episode 12. And we learned the title of episode 12 is going to be Disconnected, which I think could have a lot of meaning, especially like disconnected between Eddie and Christopher. People are thinking that there's like a 911 call that gets disconnected. He's asked about like Buck and how, you know, Buck lost the dog. Is Buck gonna get another dog or like another distraction? And Tim says that like Buck is still baking and like obviously like moving is gonna take up a lot of space in his times, and he runs into like other people, ? And the People's Princess, Robbie, is coming home, which we're super excited about. In episode 11, Holy Mother of God, we are going to meet Bobby's mom and brother. And we finally got confirmation that 8/11 is going to be directed by Aisha Hines. And I'm so excited about that. And it makes a lot of sense because like Oliver and Aisha are besties. And so I'm sure he was like super excited to like talk about it. And now that like, I can't wait to see what Oliver says about Aisha being the director of that episode. Then Tim said that he's super excited about episode 10, which is like the second act to the kidnapping storyline. And then he also talks about how there's another two-parter in the season. And he thinks it's going to be episode 14 or 15, roughly around in there. And he says that it feels like more of a season finale than in the middle of the season, which like, what do you mean by that? What do you mean? I'm scared. They talk to him about like all the different film references that like Tim like pulls from, and he says there's another one coming up. I can't narrow it down. I can't tell you what it's going to be about, but I'm scared because I guess I'm always scared. Then TV Insider talked a little bit with Oliver Stark, and Oliver Stark that said that with the whole like Eddie leaving thing, that really triggered his abandonment issues, and then, you know, him moving in to the house. Oliver said that the loft space does not exist anymore. I loved that loft. Let's just take a moment real quick. May she rest in peace. Rest in peace to the side of the kitchen scene. But then Oliver also says that Gian is the key to discovering Maddie, which, I don't know, is she a psychic? We'll see. Then there's another interview with the showrunner, Tim. Tim says that the whole Maddie storyline, quote, may not go as expected, which, don't know what that means, and I'm scared for it, because I'm always scared for it. Then he was saying that, like, the whole kidnapping and that, like, phone call with the voice changer was inspired by the weepy voiced killer, and he said you can find clips of it on the internet. I don't think I want to. Let me know if you've heard it, if you Googled it and you've heard it, but no, I don't want to hear that. Tim was talking about Abigail Spencer, who is the woman who plays Amber, and he says that you have no idea how amazing she is until you see part 2. Maddie has to do what she has to do to survive, and hopefully she will. What do you mean, hopefully? Then when asked about the whole like comment that Eddie made to the renters that caused Buck to spiral, he kind of says that like Eddie didn't really mean it in the way that it came off, and more about like Eddie's responsibilities are in Texas and not his ties, and that Buck and his abandonment issues, you know, are really stressing out because he's about to lose an important part of his life when Eddie moves. And he also points out that what's a really interesting thing is that because Hen, Chimney, and Bobby like completely understand what Eddie has to do, and they're on like his side, is also they all have kids and Buck doesn't. So Buck isn't the parental figure in the way that everybody else is, so he might not understand. Then he said something that like I don't know, maybe he was like trying to like cover his ass, save face, whatever, but I'm choosing not to read too far into this statement, but he said that he wants to let the episode speak for himself, and he doesn't want to suggest that they're going down some road that they're not. And I don't know if he means that in like a Buck Eddie way or if he means that in somewhere else, but like I don't care. We will see Christopher on screen, and that all of the characters are going to go through something big, and we're going to get a lot of changes throughout the season. Then we have an interview with Ryan with Hello Magazine, and he also kind of echoed what Tim said of like he didn't really mean a lot of like that comment of no ties. He just kind of said what he needed to say to like get the people on board. And then he also calls Buck and Eddie a brotherhood, which like sure, but also like for now. And he says that Buck really like views Eddie and Christopher as like family. Y'all saw that too, right? The whole Texas storyline, that everything is up in the air. Ryan has no idea what happens in Texas or how long he's going to be there, but he like knows that he's like not getting written off the show, because Tim has said in the past that Ryan is too pretty to get written off the show, which like I agree. So then we have an interview with Oliver in Us Magazine, and Buck, he was saying how Buck just like depends a lot on like Eddie and his stability, and Buck's just like really coming from a place of hurt and trauma when he hears Eddie say those things, and how Buck just really convinces himself that it's best for Eddie, and he has kind of blinders on like how painful it really is, and that statement kind of blows the blinders off. And Oliver said that he really enjoyed the tension and how that like, you know, you can feel multiple things at once because he's like making it all about him. That's what he does, but he's also like not asking him not to go. Like it's a very complicated thing. And he says it's not as smooth of a transition between like the loft and the house because the space reminds him of Eddie. And then she asked him what 3 words describe Buck's season 8 journey. And he says, uncomfortable, opportunity, and devastating. Once again, uncomfortable, opportunity, devastating. The last one scares me. Uncomfortable I can get because he like he's obviously grown a little bit, and like obviously Eddie not really abandoning him, but like piecing out on him is really stressful. Opportunity for new growth, for new friends, for new whoever, whatever. But devastating? Scared. And then another Oliver article with TV Fanatic. Oliver was saying that the fight was really fun for them because it's something different between Buck and Eddie that they don't normally do. And Buck is like not super content in his life, and he's going to start looking for outside sources of healing. And he finds himself in situations or conversations that are uncomfortable, and he faces himself in ways that he never expected to. He wants to like look within and like really dive into that. And Oliver is not sad to see the loft go. And then I put in parentheses, traitor. I love the loft. She will be missed. And he said it's kind of like weird because it's not Buck's new space, but it's Eddie's old one, right? And then they asked him about like Bailey the beagle and how like it was working with like another dog. Oliver said that he really wanted Bear, his like big dog, to like be on set because the script never said anything about what type of dog, but he did some research and it turns out that he needed like a lot of hours of training with like a specific like Hollywood trainer, and that Bear just wasn't qualified for it. Oliver does say that Buck needs a cat. Speaking of needing a cat, Buck should get an Oliver. Because yeah, I think I said that. I think Buck should get a cat. Then there was an interview with Jennifer Love Hewitt with TheWrap.com, and Miss Ma'am says that this is the hardest thing that Maddie's ever had to go through, and it makes the Doug storyline seem like a lunch date. It makes the Doug storyline seem like a lunch date. The Doug storyline where she gets kidnapped and physically assaulted, and then she has to run through the woods while her husband has a gun and ends up killing him with like a little... That's a lunch date compared to this. I'm scared. I'm absolutely scared. And then Jennifer also says that every character is just going through it, which like, what the fuck? So looking ahead about what we can expect from the rest of the season. Clearly, obviously scared for episode 10 because of the Maddie storyline. And also like, no one knows that Maddie's pregnant. So like, I'm scared that Maddie's gonna lose the baby and there's gonna be like something that goes on with the baby in that scene. I'm scared for the like Buck of it all, but I'm excited for I don't know how to wrap up all my thoughts because I just told you a lot of information and it's just kind of all gobbledygook. What are you excited for? What are you scared for? What do you think's gonna happen? What do you think this two-parter is going to be later in the season? What storyline, whose storyline do you think we could do something with? I feel like it has to be an Eddie storyline. Have you guys seen the thoughts that people think Eddie's gonna get hit by like a tree or like get hit by a car or something? The cat's snoring. I love him so much. So we have this like two-parter, and then the thought of like Eddie getting hit by a car, Eddie getting hit by a tree, whoever, whatever, what the fuck goes on there, right? And then what else could be happening this season? We see Bobby and Athena getting a house, but then we also see Bobby's mom and brother. What the fuck goes on there? This is like the first time we're ever meeting them post that flashback in season 7. What if 14-15 is gonna feel like a season finale? Are we gonna get a huge season finale then? What the fuck? Like, genuinely, are we absolutely sure what direction in which we are going? Oh my god. I took all of the screenshots. Look at this. Can you see all that? It's good. What? Yeah, who do we think? Who do we think the two-parter is gonna be about? because I think it's going to be about Eddie and Chris. Because Hen just wrapped up her traumatic storyline. Chimney's about to get his. Buck's currently going through his. Eddie's currently going through his. Bobby just had his. So, like, anyway, yeah, leave your thoughts below. Let me know. What are you looking forward to? What are we hesitantly looking forward to? What do we think is going to happen? I don't know. What did you think about the episode? I haven't fully processed all my thoughts. I'll probably come back with another video later after. I'll have I'll have more thoughts after episode 10. But let me know down below. Leave me a fire truck emoji, and I'll see you next one.